Hello, I'm Soycat and welcome back to the second channel geography video. There are a lot of things different about this video, partly because of my new camera setup, partly because Google Maps changed their entire color scheme, but today it's much more important we talk about the weird things going on in South America because I don't know that they're okay electorally. They just elected in Argentina a leader who is a self-described anarcho-capitalist. One of the furthest right governments we've seen in a mainstream party of the world was just elected president by a majority vote, and at the exact same time we have Guyana being very upset and asking the World Court to please stop Venezuela holding a referendum to annex them, which sounds like Guyana's being dramatic, but then you look carefully and you realize, nope, Venezuela is holding a referendum on whether they should annex the Guyana Essequibo region, which just so happens to lie entirely in the territory of neighboring Guyana. Venezuela wants to annex their neighbor, and they at least are doing so democratically, and Argentina is about to have some of the most fascinatingly divisive and indeed extreme politics we've seen from a country. What is going on in South America? Funnily enough, the answer can be for both of these, but not the third weird example. Actually, the British. The British are sort of behind both cases in a weird, fun way, and you're gonna love how that comes into it, but you'll also love the explanation of what's going on with the Argentine flag, because you might not have known what all of the colors stood for before this video, but by the end of it, I guarantee you will, because it all ties in together as we talk about how the British have anything to do with South America. Famously, when you look at the South American continent, you'll realize that linguistically speaking, it's divided by realistically two languages. There's Portuguese and then there's Spanish everywhere else. There is a French and a bit of Dutch and a bit of English in there, but for the most part this is a continent where the Spanish got a 10 out of 10. They destroyed it and they did very, very well, and honestly that things are going pretty well in South America. It's one of the most war-free places. I mean, again, even when they annex their neighbors, they do so with a polite 5-question referendum. You gotta give Venezuela credit for that, if nothing else. Definitely not propping up a failing regime there, but the interesting thing is to talk first much more about Argentina, because Argentina is a very interesting example. As I mentioned before on this channel, they were the richest country at one point in time, and since then things have been going poorly. And so as Argentina has been electing many leaders, many have been leaning very far to the left and have promised that more government has been the solution to their problems. The Argentinian peso has gone from being about 1-to-1 with the dollar to about 10-to-1 with the dollar to about a lot less than that, and the inflation rate, as the West is crying about 10%, we're heartbroken over the idea of things costing 10% more than last year. We have Argentina with, 107%. It's pretty bad, huh? Even higher than that? Okay, real bad, real bad. So things are going badly in Argentina, and the way they see it, the only solution is this radical outsider, Javier Milei, who says that yes, he is going to do things differently, and not just a little differently. He's going to try radical ideas like abolishing a central bank. So I have to admit, when I read about something like this, I'm someone who's relatively open to at least letting people try things, at least when it's in different countries, to see how it would go. If it turns out this is an amazing idea, we should know about it. Why do we need central banks if it can work well for Argentina not to have one? But basically, the reason this is happening is that the Latin American country's economy and institutions have public anger over high inflation and record poverty rates under the center-left Peronist coalition. The people who are meant to help these people have not been doing so, and so they have turned to the other side. And although, to be fair, today begins the end of Argentina's decline. Today ends the impoverishing model of the omnipresent state, which only benefits some while the majority suffers. And indeed, they are going to try some very crazy things, as the Financial Times puts it, shock therapy. They are planning to cure the Argentine economy, not by saying the solution to our previous bad government decisions is more government, which can be the case in a lot of places, but instead by saying the solution to our previous bad government decisions is no government. And honestly, a lot of people hear this and go, well, they're going to go pretty poorly. But actually, when you look at it, even though he is one of the most libertarian candidates to be elected to government anywhere, he is a government candidate that hates government, to put that clearly. He specifically says that he is a fan of Margaret Thatcher, who is, again, one of the most libertarian-style prime ministers we've had in the UK, if maybe a little bit softer on the social conservative side of things. But the interesting thing to say here is that the fact that someone from Argentina is praising Thatcher But keep in mind that Thatcher famously won an election because of a war with Argentina, where Argentina expected the UK to just give up the islands that are over here. If you're not familiar with the Falkland Islands, by the way, they are part of a big international dispute where maybe the UN said we should give them to Argentina, and we said, well, the people don't want it, so we're not going to go along with that. But long story short, an Argentine president managing to say, I love Margaret Thatcher, and even kind of being soft on saying, even though I believe that the Falkland Islands are ours, I don't know if it's such a big thing. The fact that he can come in there and win 55.6% of the country, that tells you everything you need to know about how the country is feeling about their current political position. It doesn't matter how right or wrong your politics sound in an argument, when people have seen your team in office for long enough, it seems to be that they'll want to elect someone else. This seems to be why there's a pendulum effect in most major countries, where no matter how good or bad a political team may be, eventually they're going to get kicked out after 4 or 8 years in the US with their presidential style, and after between 5 to 15 years in the UK, it seems. But in most countries, you have this just constant switching back and forth, because how great can your ideas be if you're in power and they haven't worked? And so in Argentina, they're trying some very radical right-wing ideas, and will they work? I genuinely do not know. So the thing that I think is important to say is, even though it sounds insane to say he wants to just cut all government by 15%. He wants to abolish large numbers of government departments, and he wants to really remove the very concept of government in lots of places. He wants to, indeed, something fascinating he said right here is he wants to private everything that can be in private sector hands will be in private sector hands. But even as someone who is saying these things, if you actually read into it a bit more, it's because, well, actually, he doesn't have a congressional majority. It's a very weak negotiating position to say, let's cut government 5%, and then you negotiate with the opposition, and you get down to, let's cut government by 1%. He is starting by saying, we're privatizing everything, we are giving up on a national bank, and there'll be no more of all of this. And then maybe when he compromises, he gets down to what he might see as more ideal. Indeed, this is something that was actually more famous about Margaret Thatcher, but without diving into 1980s politics, the interesting thing here is that, yeah, there was a 1982 war with the UK over the Falkland Islands. Argentina, and honestly, there is a big controversy about being someone who praised them, so he's had to since reverse opinion on that, something we'll come back into later, because again, you might be wondering, what does the Argentina flag stand for? Being from the UK, the Falkland Islands has always been a sore spot. We are a part of many alliances. At the time we were part of the EU, we're a part of NATO. We have all these friends around the world who say, yeah, we believe in your, right to sovereignty. We believe in supporting you in the same way you'd support us, friends. And the Falkland Islands were invaded, and no one did anything. And it was this assumption that, like, yeah, the Argentines were just allowed to take these islands because they were closer to them than they were to us. And so logically, they're not even really British, even though I think the funny thing about this is, like, they're not really British or Argentine. They're just islands for the most part. There's a tiny, 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 tiny little town called Stanley over here. But in Stanley, if you look around it, you'll realize very quickly, well, yeah, Stanley is a British town. It might be a British town on an Argentine island if you really think that soil has feelings about who it belongs to. But there are some British people who really would like to remain a part of the UK. It's very, very bizarre in my opinion. Look at that. They've got red telephone boxes. They've got they've got the Royal Mail box here. But this is a full part of the UK. They've got a pub called The Rose. That's how you know it's real, right? But there is there are these islands here, and they almost would have believed that we weren't going to save them, but we decided to save them. If you are a Falkland Islander, we decided to protect our territory. If you're a British person, if you're an Argentine, we decided to resist their rightful reclamation of their territory. And if you're the rest of the world, oh, I guess the UK is busy doing something, but I don't really feel like helping. And so that is a part of our identity here, which is where this flag is. It's going to be important, because what does the Argentine flag really stand for? Well, as you can see, the red in the flag stands for ownership over the Falkland Islands. Just saying, friends. Anyway, important thing to move on to is how Guyana asked the World Court recently to stop Venezuela's referendum over disputed territory. And so, this one you can blame, like, well, Argentina has never really been the same. since they had a big loss of national faith, and this is them maybe moving past it. You can make the argument that, like, yeah, I guess this is sort of the UK's fault, but you can't convince me, Toycat, that Guyana and Venezuela getting into a dispute and Venezuela holding a referendum is anything to do with the UK. But actually, fun fact, so Venezuela is not actually asking to annex all of Guyana, just Guyana Esquiva, which, done the research, this is what Guyana Esquiva looks like, by the way. It is about 70% of Guyana. If we were to look at it on a map, I don't make the mistake of assuming Google will tell you where the Esquiva region is, by the way. It gives you this pin right here, but it will briefly tell you that, like, yeah, this is a disputed region. The overwhelming majority of Guyana is disputed because when there were, when this was Spain and when this was the UK and / the Netherlands at different points in times, it was just kind of like an unknown dispute that they never really resolved, and so eventually Venezuela goes independent, eventually Guyana goes independent, and the dispute moves on to these two non-colonial powers who just say, yeah, we both agree we have it, but right now Guyana has it, and we'll agree to eventually, via the 1966 Geneva Accords, we'll agree that whatever solution we come to, it'll be something that is agreed on internationally, won't be solved via war. And so, even though Venezuela's a little upset with that, they've even got a Guyana city over here, because that's what the whole area is generally called. That's why there's a French Guyana, that's why Dutch Guyana was a thing. There was too many Guyanas in the world at one point in time. There still is, in my opinion. I think I've got a radical merge them all in together into one big place solution right here. But ignoring the whole idea of British people drawing lines, the idea behind Venezuela's referendum is like, wait a minute, we signed an agreement, the 1966 Geneva Agreement, and that was real stupid, huh? Why did we agree to that? Let's go to a referendum, and if you agree, we'll ignore that whole international accord. What's a peace treaty? What's international justice? We don't believe in any of that. We are going to ask you, the people, do you agree that we should again, do you believe that the line fraudulently interposed by the 1899 Paris Arbitration Award seeks to deprive us of Guyana? Anyway, long story short, they're having a vote on whether they should annex another country, which obviously that country is not happy with, but also the Caribbean community is also very not happy with, and also the Commonwealth of Nations, because, Guyana is a part of it, are also not happy with it. So the majority of the world, long story short, is saying, ooh, Venezuela, you can't do that. And Venezuela is holding a referendum anyway. Is this because they are going to take it? Is Venezuela about to get 20% larger? Is Guyana about to get 66% smaller? Or is there something else at play? Well, one, there's something else at play is like, look, you can't even fully blame the British on this one. The Dutch were involved in this colonialism too. Usually the Dutch are pretty good at that sort of stuff, but they didn't agree with the Spanish, and so really only half the British fault. But two, I think that if you look at Venezuela's political situation, you get something real quick going on. So I'm going to quickly show you Nicolas Maduro, the man who is very, he began his life as a bus driver, he became a trade union leader, and now he is the president of a very successful country. I believe if we go to the page for Venezuela, you'll find that there's very few things going on there. You won't find the word regional military dictators. You won't find anything in there about like, ooh, the riots and like, ooh, you won't find the Bolivarian Revolution. And yeah, it's just a really nice page. Venezuela's been a very successful country that has very low levels of perceived corruption. That's why there's a whole article specifically about corruption in the country. All of this, don't worry about reading this right now. You just got to know that it's all saying, yeah, things are good. You can trust Venezuela. Nothing ever goes wrong there, and there is no corruption. It's a very solid, heart of gold left-wing government that only does good for their people. And so, but yeah, separately, they've been having some political issues. Can't work out why any of that would be happening in a country as oil-rich as Venezuela. Like, all the citizens in Venezuela must be so rich from all this oil they have. The largest oil reserves in the world. So, because Venezuela is so rich, they've been having some political problems, clearly because people are too rich, they have too much money, they're eating too well, they're getting fat. It's a big problem in Venezuela. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to shore up some political base by saying, look, this isn't our problem, the fact that you guys are eating too well, and the fact that there are so low levels of corruption and all these problems. Instead, it's Guyana's fault. In fact, the 1989 Paris Accords and the 1966 Geneva, it's all their fault, really. And so, if we just invade the country, all the problems would go away. And honestly, in international times, this does tend to happen. The thing I mentioned, the Falkland Islands, of the UK sticking to it and defending them, was the biggest turning point in the 80s for our homeland. 1,900 people who live with some sheep and penguins way down here affected the politics way up here, and so imagine the same thing happening much closer to home, except maybe instead of just defending territory, you maybe take it from someone else, which is why all the wording is about, oh yeah, this was wrongly taken from us, we're just gonna take it back. We're just gonna incorporate said state on the map of Venezuelan territory. That's all we're gonna do, put it on the citizenship and identity card. We're just gonna take the territory back in a legalish way. We're not gonna do anything too bad though. And yeah, so that's what's going on in Venezuela. Is it the British's fault? I would say if Argentina's like a 4 out of 10, I would say Venezuela's like a 2 out of 10. Should we have helped out Guyana with their disagreements more? Yeah. Would Venezuela have just said, no, we want it anyway? Yeah. So the best thing we could have done is like, maybe we'll help out, send in some troops if it comes to it. But yeah, I think the realistic thing you want if you're Guyana is just for Venezuela to get some real leadership going on in there. Maybe even some real democracy. You know, I don't want to be crazy here, but I have heard that the guy who does the elections has a little bit of corruption going on. That's what I've heard. I hope it doesn't grow into anything too big, and so I hope that they get that fixed. But yeah, if you're curious still about South American politics, everywhere you look, there's something insane. So everyone knew for a while Brazil had, the Trump-style, Bolsonaro is how people refer to him as, but I think people just now say Trump-style when they mean right-wing, like, oh, it's like a Trump moment when there's a anarcho, like a libertarian, and it's like, is that really the same? You can't just be like, anyone on the right wing is Trump, or you're saying that Trump is just a random guy on the right wing. But instead, if you look at, like, and to prove that point, by the way, let me show you Peru. This is Peru, which I didn't realize till looking at this map, looks suspiciously like Finland. This was their 2020 election. And in that election, the Free Pap, which is a very quirky name for a party, won 8.3% of the vote, almost being the largest party. They're a couple of percent away in a very, very divided parliament, but still, the Free Pap were the third biggest party and almost the biggest party in the country. What was the Free Paps or agriculture people fronts of Peru's policies? Well, I'll go into them simply. They want to recognize divine law to confront corruption and promote noble politicians. Okay. They believe in strict adherence to the 10 Commandments and the decentralization of populated cities by forming agrarian communities. They want to disband cities. The party and its main religious organization have been described as syncretic, socialist traits in economic matters, while being heavily conservative on socialist matters. They're a left-wing economic, right-wing on social policy party that almost won an election while trying to promote agriculture as a way to improve socioeconomic standards in Peru in every dimension. Every time you talk about your crazy policies, just remember to someone else, it sounds like, I guess remember that you're not as crazy as the people who want to disband cities, have everyone go farming, and all live as fish, like the Free Pap do. But yeah, as discussed in this video, South America is not doing okay, and every country you dive into, you realize there's something else going on there, because South America is just, it's too far from the rest of the world. It's a problem we've all had for a while, but you look at South America, look at their distance to Asia, look at their distance to Europe. They're kind of close to North America, but I think that's led to more problems than benefits. What South America needs to do is they need to put aside all their differences. We need to have a borderless South America, and in that South America, we can have the craziest political battle royale style experiment. And yeah, if you want to watch, make sure to stay subscribed to this channel. It's something we'll be working on using the proceeds from the 12-in-1 Ninja, which is also a 14-in-1 Ninja. Get this right. So the 14-in-1 Ninja is going on a Black Friday sale. Would you like to get a it air fries, it bakes, it does more, it's got a crisp plate, would you like to get this with a discount because it's Black Friday on Amazon? Of course you would. Also, because of Black Friday, a higher percent of your sale goes to supporting this channel. Would you like to do that? Maybe you would. Is my address visible right now? Maybe it is. Is a postcode in America too bad to share? Like, if you know I live in 89169, am I in problems now? Let me know. This is, by the way, this is my American Amazon. I'm in the UK right now. As you can tell from my wheel, my very British wheel, and my opinions on South American politics, which I hope are also very British. We could solve all the problems if we just merged it into one big place. It's always something, it's worked for the rest of the world. it will surely work over there, right? Thank you for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. And I'll see you next time. Also, what do you think about the Google Maps redesign? I don't like it, but I feel like it's one of those things where no one would ever like anything that changes like this. Maybe it's like, it's objectively prettier, but I just find it harder to like find rivers and stuff. Like, where's the canal in here? Okay, I found it. Was that a place called Lego Mutton? Anyway, long story short, hope you have a good day. I'll see you next time. Bye.